I'm Arne Meyer. I'm the community strategist at Naughty Dog. I think the biggest one for us is it goes back to unifying the gameplay experience for everyone. So the biggest thing, I think the most noticeable thing is going back to how we've improved the gunplay mechanics. We've taken the Uncharted 2 gunplay mechanics, or it's really a hybrid of Uncharted 2 and 3 a little bit, and applied them to across all three games. So as you're playing through all three games, not only are the visuals are almost the same level, but the way the game feels, and in combat especially, is starting to feel the same. And we've done other things like throw in photo mode and a few different modes, like a more difficult mode, an easier mode for people who just want to really experience the story, and a speed run mode. So there's a few other things here and there, but it really comes down to trying to create a consistent gameplay experience across all three games. To a degree, it is, and it comes back to the gunplay mechanics. I mean, the traversal, a lot of things that are tied to our animation system stay the same throughout apart all three games. But I think the biggest thing is you look back, and as you mentioned, you go back to Uncharted 2 or Uncharted 3, and you go back to Uncharted Drake's Fortune. The gunplay really isn't that satisfying, and it really wasn't our best foot forward with it, and that was what we really wanted to address. And the same thing for how grenades worked. So now you can basically do a overhand throw for the grenades as well, instead of always just using the arc. So you have a couple different options, and that was the biggest thing for us. Yeah, the goal was that you didn't have to adjust if you played all three games. So you didn't have to figure out how to play things differently, or you're used to playing the game in a certain way, and then you go into a new game and you're like, oh wait, I have to play this differently. So the idea was that you can play the game, all three games, pretty much the same. We put in 3 new modes into the game. One of them is the brutal mode, which is basically goes beyond crushing in terms of being difficult. It's not impossible. The way that it was tuned is basically Bluepoint had taken their best QA tester and sent them through the game, made adjustments to the difficulty, sent him through the game again, and basically when he couldn't finish the game, or it was so challenging that he essentially couldn't finish the game, they went back to the previous revision that he could finish. And it just affects things like the delay between your health regenerating, how fast your health regenerates, how much ammo there is. The difficulty for the AI is tuned to maximum all the time. And all it does is really create an environment for you to play more strategically. You really have to pick your path through a combat scenario. You have to use cover more wisely. You have to use ammo more wisely. The aim assist is pretty much turned off, so it turns into a lot more about skill rather than having a helping hand there. But I think it creates a good environment for a good challenge, rather than just saying, okay, we're just going to make it as impossible as we can for you. I think Bluepoint was doing it for about 1.5 years. I mean, we were thinking about this for a long time. We actually started thinking about doing an Uncharted remaster before The Last of Us remaster came out. But it was something that, sort of in the back of our heads, and we were trying to figure out if that was something that we wanted to do. And things started to come together. We heard that there are all these users on the PS4 that didn't have a PS3 or didn't play the Uncharted series. So a lot of things started to feel like this was the right time to do it, and we started looking for a partner. I felt that it was a big challenge to do 3 games in one package in a short period of time, but Bluepoint really just knocked it out of the park. They did such a great job doing remastering all 3 games and adding improvements to it. They were really ambitious, and that was one of the reasons why we were feeling like they were a good partner, was because they had the same ambitions we do as a studio. We had 2 roles. Obviously, we had all the technology, source code, development pipeline, everything, so we handed all that over. Some of it wasn't all that great, so they would have to come back to us and we'd have to help them out. We sometimes work with partners. A lot of our sound effect files were sort of lost because we didn't have them at the studio, so we helped gather all of that for them and give them help with that. And then I think at the end of the day, it's a weird way to put it, but it's like we were almost co-creative directors between the two studios for the direction. So Bluepoint would come up with these ambitious ideas of how they wanted to do updates or add new modes to the gameplay. They would run that by us. We would discuss it. We would collaborate on how we could make it better. When they asked for bug fixes or things that they wanted changed or addressed, they would come up with their own list. We would come up with a list. We'd get together and do it. So a lot of it was sort of talking, making decisions collaboratively, but I think that just goes back to how we work as a studio. Everything's collaborative, and we always work together, and they were great at doing that. Absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of people who watch movies when they know exactly what's going to happen, many times over, just because they want to have that experience. They want to have the inspiration and sort of the same feel that they have. And that's somewhat at the base here, but you also have to think we have all of those visual and graphics improvements, and the game looks so much better. So you go back into it, you're having kind of a new visual experience, but it's also some of the gameplay updates and sort of how everything feels better, and how the gunplay feels better in Uncharted Drake's Fortune, and so you're having the ability to have all of these advantages, so it'll feel a little bit more satisfying. It changes the experience a little bit because all of these sort of bumps have been smoothed out, even though the narrative is the same. I don't think it spoils anything to go through if you already know what the narrative is. We're never going to say never, right? Like, there's a lot of fans for it. There's probably a good amount of people who buy it. It's not something that we're currently considering. I was at Eurogamer Expo, and Shuhei was sitting in front, and I was telling people who were asking me that very same question. I was saying, well, go talk to Shuhei and tell him you want it. So, I mean, there's always a chance. He was just sitting there saying, great. Like, I'm sure he's thinking, great, now you're making everyone come to me instead. We're going to focus on Uncharted 4 multiplayer. I think I was thinking about it earlier, and I was like, if you really think about, if you're trying to combine Uncharted 2 and 3 multiplayer and create a multiplayer mode out of it, you're essentially creating Uncharted 4 multiplayer, but without the advantages of the engine that we're working on there. That's the idea. Uncharted 4 multiplayer is the next evolution for it. So that makes sense for us to focus on there, and that was basically the decision that we were making behind that. We were filling almost an entire Blu-ray, not a dual-sided Blu-ray, but we were basically filling an entire Blu-ray with each of the standalone games. So if you think about it, that's 25 gigs each. And then 3 games, that's 75, but now they're in 44. So we've actually done a better job of compressing and reusing some textures and assets that we could have before. So.
But that's not how it will end. This is how it will end.
I'm sorry. Sully! We don't get to choose how we start in this life.
Had to try.
Real greatness. It's what you do with the hand you dealt.
You're a crook, right? What do you want from me?
I see great things in our future, kid. Great things.